Hello, sister travelers. Welcome back to Solo Travel Adventures. I'm Cheryl S., your host. Well, today's episode is actually a recording from a year ago, and I'm reposting it since I will be in Hawaii at the time of releasing that episode. And so I wanted to bring back one of my favorites from last year in full, my dear friend Danielle Hebert, and how God sent her to Kuwait to heal. And she shares her story of how that happened and some of the turmoil and that she went through, and really how it turned out to be such a positive experience. So I hope you enjoy the episode and listen in to our conversation. Have you ever experienced so much heartache, pain, grief, or even just the stress of everyday life is just so mounting and overwhelming? You have anxiety and need to get away. You're saying, Calgon, take me away. And so if you're from my, era, we know what that means. But you want to go beyond the Calgon, take me away feel. You want to escape these problems. Possibly on a beach would be a better place. Well, I think we've all been there, and especially at our age in midlife and beyond, we have had tragedies. We've come across what I like to call these messy middle seasons in our life. And often, we sit in them like we're sitting in mud, and we just don't know how to get out. And often we overlook this whole idea of stepping away from the situation and getting a clearer picture. Well, my guest today, Danielle, did just that. Pretty big step that she took in leaving a messy situation and finding herself in the Middle East to heal. So join our conversation. Well, hello, sister travelers. I have an incredible guest today, Danielle Hebert. I've gotten to know her over the last few months, and she has an incredible story of how she just kind of picked up her life and moved to the Middle East. And I wanted her to share her story with you and that whole process and what happened. So let's dive in, Danielle. Tell us what was happening in your life that prompted such a drastic geographic change for you.
Well, first of all, I'm really excited to be on this podcast with you all because I am excited to be a part of what Cheryl's doing here. I was going through a really crazy divorce after 32 years, and COVID. Everybody had that as well, and so I just one night was not sleeping very well, and I had that earlier that day. I had told my soon-to-be ex-husband, I was like, "You can go anywhere in this world." I said, "Your job allows you to work from home, and mine it did not." And so I did not sleep well that night, and I just felt moved that why couldn't I? Why couldn't I go anywhere else? And so I got up in the middle of the night. I did like most of us do and just start scrolling through and was looking for jobs. I'm an educator by trade. So I was thinking, okay, let's go to Europe. Let's go somewhere. And Kuwait popped up. And I was like, okay, let's see what this is. And it was a curriculum coordinator for Kuwait, an international school. And I was like, okay. And I was just looking at it. And I thought, oh, I can do this. This sounds fun. And I honestly, it was amazing because I must have just clicked with the LinkedIn, which is pretty cool when you can do that. But I didn't, hadn't really updated my LinkedIn because I really wasn't thinking about that. So, but all worked out. I got a call, and within 2 weeks, I had a job offer. And then it took about 2 months to get all the paperwork ready to go. And then just a sidebar, my son was in the National Guard, and he is working on becoming an officer in the National Guard. And they said, "Oh, you need to do some overseas experience." And so during that 2 month process where I was getting my paperwork, he found out that he was going to be in Kuwait the same time that I was going to be in Kuwait. So God works things in bizarre ways. I mean, I didn't
Uh,
get to see him a lot, but he was just 40 minutes away for one of those years that I was over there, and I was over there for 2 years. So that's how it happened.
oh, so you said that comment to your soon to be ex at the time and thought, well, why can't I? I love that response. But was there some other deeper intention for you to even consider moving away from your home country? I know you said you were going through a pretty difficult divorce.
Well,
Did,
I think it had gotten to the point where when anybody's been in a relationship of any kind and there's been abuse and just a loss of trust, I think
Mhm.
is a huge thing to say. I think that there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. And I was at the point where I just, and of course, as an educator, we had all taken beatings for several years because of the COVID situation. And so I was just probably emotionally, socially, physically, um, spiritually, just drained. And I really just wanted a complete change. Um, and I just felt like I needed that for healing. I
Yeah.
needed to be able to just get away from this situation. And I think that's really, I know Cheryl and I've talked about this before. It's very different from just, hey, I want to run away from the situation. And sometimes you might feel that, but in the process, I think you need to really be introspective and go, what am I going to do to actually take care of me? Right. It was the first time in 30 some years that I was able to just kind of focus on me and not to try to be selfish, but I think that our generation as a whole, those of us that are in our 50s and 60s are just we were trained to be all right. Work, take care of kids, take care of the husband, and that is what women were to do. And at the expense of ourselves sometimes, right? And so I
Hmm.
think that that is why I was just like, you know what? And at the same time, I also had a beautiful grandson who I was taking care of a lot of the time. Um, was my wonderful, wonderful blessing. And and I was just like, I need to get healthy so that I can be healthy for my grandkids too, and that I can be healthy for myself, and that I can be what God intended me to be. And at that point, I truly did not feel at that point that way. So I was like, fine, let's Lord, you. And the thing that I'm probably underselling this, but to not fill out a large application to go in an international job, to not to be hired within a 2 week time period with a huge 9 hour time change, for all the paperwork to fall into place when that does not always happen. While I was still going through the divorce process, still cleaning out a house, still trying to get everything else ready. Um, God had all of that fall into place. And when those things happen, you have a lot, it builds on your trust, right? And your trust is low at that point. And I think that is such a blessing to be able to have that peace. Okay, God, you've got me this far. You're going to keep leading the way. And so did I set out to go, oh, I'm going to go to the Middle East? um you know the only thing I knew about Kuwait was Desert Storm. So I was like,
Right.
great.
Yeah.
So um and then it's a Muslim country. So those were my two things, and I'm thinking, all right, we'll see, Lord. Maybe it's, and I shared this with Cheryl. I said, that is how you know that God has a wonderful sense of humor,
Yes.
because he sent me to a Muslim country to spiritually heal and just to meet some amazing people in the process. So
Are you in a season of transition? Maybe your marriage ended. Maybe you've lost your spouse. Or maybe you're in that quiet season after the kids are grown and life just feels different. Well, many women in this stage of life start to feel a pull towards travel, not just to see new places, but to step away long enough to reflect, pray and begin asking what God might have for them next. If that's where you are, this is exactly the kind of work I do with women inside my one-on-one solo traveling coaching program. Together, we design a journey that helps you rebuild confidence and step into the next chapter God is writing for you. Because I work closely with each woman, I only accept a small number of clients at a time. So if this is something you've been thinking and praying about, you can apply at CherylBeckEsch.com/work with me or click the link in the show notes. Well, I think that's amazing. You had intention behind, and you shared how God really orchestrated it because, often people might ask, like, why Kuwait? Like you could have probably gone to teach in another country anywhere, but like you said, everything just seamlessly fell into place for a reason. And I love that story and how that came to be. But knowing you were going to Kuwait, you said you had a lot you were getting ready to do. You were going through the divorce, clearing out your house, packing things up. I mean, that's a lot to, just carry. But did you have any concerns about living in Kuwait based on, you said you've only known Kuwait through Desert Storm. Same thing with me. That's really all I know about Kuwait. But I also know that, culturally, they do regard women differently. So was that a concern of yours, in going to that type of country?
Well, in the interview, I actually asked some of those questions because I was like, what are we, is there a dress code? Is there, things that are, I wanted to go into the country being a little bit more prepared. So in the interview, I did ask some of those things. You have to understand, I'm being interviewed by people that are in hijabs and different things like this. So I'm also trying to be understanding of how I word my questions because I don't know. I think either it's a personality thing or it's a culture thing, or we're all Americans and we just speak what we think. So we 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 need to just kind of think about what our words are that we say sometimes. And so basically, I was just asking, about that right away because I saw them in the interview because we did Zoom interviews, obviously, and um, they're like, no, you. But it was interesting because I had two ladies that were in there without hijabs and two ladies that did have hijabs on. And so I was like, and for you all that don't really know what a hijab is, I didn't until they told me. It's the head covering that the women wear over there. Um, but basically, um, this is the deal is they were just, I was like, well, they're not using one. And they're like, no, we don't expect you to have any other religion. We do have a Muslim religion. This is uh, an international school, and we want your expertise on American education and training our teachers and things like that in our curriculum. And so that is how that all came to be. And so I did look it up, and you had to have your arms and legs covered. So I was like, okay, so I'll just take my light long sleeve shirts and that was kind of the gist. That's all I really worried about. But it was very different when I arrived in the airport. I wasn't expecting to see men in guns and things like that at the airport. That's just not
Oh,
in the military
wow.
garb and stuff, right? So, but I was like, okay, you know what? Just keep going. We're here. And I'd met so many sweet people on the airplane that were going to Kuwait and working in different schools as well. That I was like, okay. I mean, I thought that was even cool. Is that on the airplane, I met a family, a lady with her two kids that was working in another school in Kuwait, and she was returning and just talking. And then I ended up sitting on a second flight next to a lady who worked for a business in Kuwait. And she gave me her number and she said, oh, well, you'll have to come and look me up and all this stuff. And I was just like, this is so inviting. And when you are ever at a point when you're trying to heal and you have been just your tank is empty, right? For a lack of a better word, your tank is empty. You need to be loved on, right? You need some people to fill that up, and God used complete strangers um, to do that, and it's such a blessing. So,
Yeah. So it
yeah,
sounds like, you were there 2 years. So around, it was 2021 is when you went
2021
to,
to 2023.
Three. Yeah, so you were there about 2 years. And
Yep.
so in 2 years, I know you made some friends. How were you treated by the locals? Because you actually kind of became one of them. So how
Right.
was that?
Well, the nice thing is that I got to live in the military. We called that on the economy instead of in I was married to someone that had been in the military, so I was used to traveling a little bit. But I think that it was great because I had everybody in my building were maybe not Kuwaiti because Kuwaitis have the bigger homes on the outer. I was in town. I was like downtown, and so I was in a big building, and God took care of that too because it's desert, and I mean, I get it. Some people love the desert landscape. That is not me. I have always been somebody that loved green, loved water, put me by a lake, an
Oh,
ocean
yeah.
any day, right? And so I got to have an apartment where I had a view when there weren't sandstorms. I had a view of the Gulf, so I could see water. So I was
Oh,
like, okay, there
wow.
is water. So
Okay.
that to me, that was another God's got this, right? I mean, totally. Of all the places, a lot of
I
the
know, right?
buildings, I mean, a lot of the building, and this was a tall building in order to do that, right? Most of the buildings were not that tall. I could see the roofs of most of the buildings around me. And that meant I could have been in one of those buildings where I was just looking at other buildings, right?
Mhm.
So to me, those things are huge, huge God plays, right? And so then I got there and I learned the lingo, right? I learned how to use the dinar. I Most of the people that I probably worked with were not necessarily Kuwaitis. I mean, I met a few Kuwaitis, but a lot of them were Indians. A lot of them were Egyptians. A lot of them were Iranians, Pakistanians, because they're the taxi drivers. Sri Lankans, all the Sri Lankans were my drivers. Um, my A little Egyptian man was my little, they call them bakalas, little bakala. And those are basically like a little mini 7-Eleven that's the size of a closet, right? They have little things and you call them and they will bring them to you. And
Oh, wow.
he came and brought me all my waters, whatever I needed. I would call and he would bring whatever. And he saw he saw me one day and I don't know what it was. I don't know, something. He all of a sudden said, "You Christian?" And I was like, "Well, yes," which is not something you usually hear.
Yeah.
And he's in his normal garb and he raises his arm up and he has a cross. He said, "Me too." And he said it like
Oh,
really quietly.
yeah.
And he was a little Egyptian man. And I was like, what a blessing. What a
Aw.
blessing, right? And so, there was a lot of that. A lot of Filipino women were what they called nannies when they are called over to watch the children for them and clean their house and fix their meals.
Hmm.
Um, and this just tells you they always have them wear these uniforms. But I didn't know that when I first saw them. And one was this really pretty pink little pantsuit. And I was just like, "Oh, you were wearing such a cute outfit." And all of a sudden she looked at me funny and she didn't. The thing that you have to learn about a lot of these other people that aren't Kuwaitis, they live to not be seen. They live to not be
Okay.
seen because they do not want to lose their job.
Mm.
They live on nothing. So they send everything back to their homes
Hmm.
for their families to live because there just aren't jobs in their countries. And we can't really fathom how this all works. I mean, I knew a taxi driver, he lived on $10 a month, like nothing. So he
Wow.
could send everything back to his family. And because some of them
Mm.
do not get paid very well,
Hmm.
but it's something. And so she looked at me strange and then just kind of put her head down and went on. And I would see this lady she was dropping off children every day when I was walking to work. And I would always say, "Good morning," or something. And she would just kind of look down or whatever. And then one day I was on my phone, I'd gotten a message and and I'm walking. And this was like probably year two, by the way. And
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden, I hear good morning. And I was like, I looked up and she actually spoke to me.
Aw.
And I was like, oh, good morning.
Yeah.
And I think it had just become a routine, and she felt safe enough to respond to me. And that was just another blessing too, right? It was also
Um,
another one of those aha moments. Again, you have your head somewhere you're not supposed to be, look up, look around, but such a blessing. Now I would say there are some times that I didn't always feel super safe.
okay.
Not
Share what.
perfect,
Yeah.
not perfectly, but I would go to the grocery store to get bigger things that the Bacala wouldn't have. And there would be one cashier who would always be, come to me. Your husband not here. You can come stay with me. And, all those things.
Oh,
And
oh,
I kind of, and that's what I'm saying. I was able to go, nope, I'm good. Thank you, and just play it off. And I would say hi to him every time he came in. But some of them feel very empowered to kind of be a little more than flirty. You know what I mean? Just kind of. And one day, the scariest thing to me was when I was walking home one day. It was in the summer. Everybody else had left. I didn't know that people could leave early the last day, and so all of a sudden I'm going, "Where is everybody?" And the whole building's empty except for a few of the safe what do they call those security guards that were around the compound. And I'm walking out, and all of a sudden, this car is right there next to me, just driving really slow right behind me as I'm walking. And he's like, I take you home. I take you home. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And it just kept just kept going. And I was like, this is kind of freaking me out. Right. So I was like, no, I'm fine. And I ran across the street into the grocery store parking lot. And then he drove off. But that was the weirdest time for me because there was nobody around. Everybody had left early. They forgot I left me in my little office.
oh, no,
And
I didn't tell you.
and so um but other than that, it was a lot more blessings than not. And I had this wonderful Lebanese family that lived in the apartment building next to me. They just took me in. They brought me meals. I worked with their son and helped tutor him some. He was the sweetest little boy. He tried to teach me how to speak Arabic, bless his heart. He would take my mouth and go, no, you have to make a sound. And I was just like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not doing very well at this. And and it just goes to show you that it's very hard to learn some, like, especially guttural song. And I'll be honest, I don't even think I'm meant for a whole bunch of languages, but I know bits and pieces. And I think it's so important to teach our little ones to speak
Yes.
different languages
Yeah.
when they're young. Their
I
mouths are
I
forming, they can
agree.
do it. So
Yes. My
uh,
kids often get mad at me because I didn't do that for them. So I guess the next we'll do it for the next generation, right, Danielle?
yes, yes, that's
We'll
the
teach our
plan.
grandchildren, right? Um, well, you were there for 2 years, and I'm sure while you were there, I know you had an opportunity, you said a little bit to see one of your sons, but you have two other sons, and you have other family and friends that were back in the States. I'm sure you missed your family. How did you combat any kind of homesickness that you might have been experiencing while there?
I had met so many new people and so many awesome people that I hate saying this because I love my family and they know that. But I have to, let me back up for a minute. I told you way back, and this is going to date me, but when my husband and I first got married, we moved to Germany because he was in the military in 1989. And we were in Germany when the wall came down. So we drove into East Germany. There really was an East Germany. We drove into that the day the wall came down. And so, I mean, we were just kids, probably weren't supposed to do that. Who knows? Took a back road. I mean, so
Historic
understand.
event, though. So,
Yes, yes. And so I had, oh, that was always my thing, right? And even in high school when we graduated, most to see the world. I mean, those little things that they have seniors vote on and all that stuff. One of mine was the first to see the world, and that's because I always had this desire to just travel everywhere. And I traveled every summer. My parents were educators, so we traveled everywhere every summer. That was just kind of something that I have a passion for, is
Mhm.
travel in the first place, right? And so to me, I was not ever really homesick, because I knew what I was doing. And the thing that's so great, oh my gosh, in 1989, they didn't have something called WhatsApp. They have WhatsApp now. So I was able to call, text my
Yeah.
family whenever. Of course, they didn't like it because the time, 9 hour
Time
time
difference.
change. They're like, Mother, it is 6 in the morning. I'm like, I know, I'm trying to catch you. So, so I got to talk to my family, and I got to, um, and I think the thing that's so valuable about that is because when you do, it's not how's the weather, right?
Mm,
It's deeper conversations. Catch me up. What's going on in your life,
right. Yeah.
right? And, I feel like sometimes in some ways I had better conversations with, a
Yeah.
lot of my photos, and
Yeah.
and my daughter-in-law, well, she's my son's fiance at the time. Well, not quite, she was his girlfriend. She flew over to Kuwait, stayed at my house. He came over. I had helped him pick out a ring. And so they got engaged in my little apartment in Kuwait.
Oh, how
And
sweet.
and
I didn't know that.
yes, very cool. And then Jessica, my daughter-in-law now, we we kind of coordinated at the end of the year so that she went with me, and we took a whole tour of Italy. And then we
Mhm.
came back to Kuwait, got her stuff, and went home. So it was just, I mean, to me, I think it was a lot more meaningful experiences. I think that's what you get out of travel in general, when you have your heart open, and your eyes out of your phone. But
Yes.
I think that that is, what life is about, is those meaningful moments, and being able to listen to God's leading. And I think that I was able to be able to heal that way. I was able to listen to a lot of great, sermons, dive into, so those quote unquote lonely moments that you were talking about, where I could
Yeah.
get homesick.
Yeah.
I was able to just, hey, this is my prayer time. This is my Bible time. And I'll tell you, my I wasn't used to the bells going off. And if you've ever been in the Middle East, you'll understand that they have bells going off every time they're supposed to pray, in their churches. They're just, and then they have somebody coming over the loudspeaker and speaking in Arabic, but to an American, it sounds like, and I'm just like, what is happening? And my apartment was really close. So at like 11 at night,
Oh,
the
wow.
first night I got there, it's going off. And I'm thinking, what does that mean? Is that like a tornado drill? I don't know what this is, right?
We're from
And
Texas, so it's a tornado drill for us.
I'm just like, what is happening? And then I'm looking at all the windows trying to figure out, oh, it's coming from that mosque. Okay. Obviously, this must be a prayer thing, right? So, um, but it woke me up, scared me, and then I got to the point where I just sleep through it. But when you have stuff like that in your head, if you will, or just like, because I mean, that was several times throughout the day, you would hear this. Um, it's a good reminder of just praying to your heavenly Father, right? And go, you know what, this, I can do that. I can pray. I don't have to get down and face a certain way, but I can pray.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was it was just a really wonderful thing. And I'll tell you, I was walking into work one day, and one of the nannies, one of the cleaners, she was in the bathroom, and she was singing a hymn, a Filipino
Wow.
lady, and she was singing a hymn. And I walked in, I was like, I know that hymn. And they have large little pockets of like Filipino churches, and Greek Orthodox churches, and Indian churches that are Christian churches, that they meet in either homes or different things like that. And that is, it was so sweet, right? So sweet to hear that. I have
Oh,
grown up in the Bible. I mean, I've grown up in the United States, and then I've raised my children in the Bible Belt. Can't tell you that I've ever heard anybody singing a hymn at work, and it was it just touched me in a really sweet way. So, I mean, those are the moments that I said God gives you in the midst of this, world. And when we want to think what we think about other places in the world, I'm just here to say sometimes we need to rethink those places, because God has people that love him in lots of pockets of this world.
yes. Yeah. And I think, like you said, we often have misconceptions about places that are not true. They're just based on what little media information we've gathered or past experiences that we've heard about. And like you said, there's a saying, there's just kindness everywhere. You just have to look for it. And I believe that as well. And I think you also express, being open, having this open heart and mind too is important to see that, but also to receive that, without judgment. So I would imagine, you've given little hints that over these 2 years while you were in Kuwait, that it sounds like you began your healing process. When you went to leave after those 2 years, how different did you feel? From a emotional, physical, all that stuff that you were dealing
Right.
with beforehand to now you're 2 years in. Well, I guess what changes did you see in yourself? And then, when you came back, I guess the reentry they call it, right?
Right. I think it was really interesting. And it's really important to know that there are so many other, because I was in an international school, I had so many different people I had that became great friends with me, from Buddhist to Mormon to, that were just different teachers. And we actually, had some great opportunities from Hindu. Yeah, I got to learn about so many different religions, just from being there and loving on people.
Hmm.
And I think that is our goal. And so for me, it was not only did I feel loved on for just being a newcomer, and it fed, first of all, I'm going to back up for a minute. It fed my professional need
Hmm.
because I had been drained from our school system, and just the different things that were going on here. And I was able to go and build up teachers. And in the process of me training teachers how to do things, the appreciation and the love and the kindness that came back to me, that was like, oh my gosh, Danielle, please show me more. Please teach me more. Right. Um, because I don't always have that situation in the United States, right? We
Yeah.
sometimes don't have that eagerness to learn, and that's sad. It's a sad commentary on our part, but um, it was very exciting to me because I was going to try to learn from them, and they wanted to learn from me, and because of that, that really helped my emotional well-being, but it
Hmm.
also helped my I didn't realize how low I had gotten in my own self-esteem and my own abilities to do my job, right?
Yeah.
And I think when we get to those points, we don't realize that we're just beat up across the board.
Hmm.
When we get to those low points, I would probably have said in my 20s, oh yeah, even in high school, oh, I'm a pretty confident person. But I think at that point I wasn't. And so I was just like, hey, let's just dive in. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we can do. And just bonding with people and learning from them and being willing to learn from them and them wanting to learn from you was such a beautiful thing, that was a very major healing part for me. But also just building beautiful relationships with people from all over the world. And and just listening to each other. And I think that that's what's funny is I don't think that sometimes we take the time. It was really awesome because we did have a lot of Muslim holidays. So on those Muslim
Oh,
holidays,
okay.
I got to go and travel all over the world
Yes.
with different people, right? And um, you just get to learn so much when you do that. And I think you have to go in with that, is going, what can I learn? Lord, what is it you're trying to show me? And I think if you close yourself off, you're not going to get that. And so, like I already told you, I got to learn to just devour marvelous, messages, and my journaling, and just all these things, and my prayers and everything that I got to go through, and the people I wanted to reconcile, my ex-husband, right? I went through all these things. Okay. Started praying for him. Just total spiritual healing, right?
Mhm.
And emotional healing. And
Yeah.
um, so that was what was going on behind the scenes, right? In
Right.
my little apartment up in the sky. Um, and
Overlooking the golf.
overlooking everything, which was so cool to me because I love heights. I love this stuff. And it was just amazing. And then I would get my adventure filled, which hadn't been filled in quite a long time,
Yeah.
by going Burj Khalifa. When I'm talking about being up high, right? We went to Dubai and had a fabulous trip. And a lot of that got paid for because I was working with a textbook company who wanted me to come to a conference in Dubai and, wined and dined me. And they did so wonderful. And it was amazing. And, so like I said, I can go on and on. There's so many things that God just orchestrated in my life. And when you are able to and in the moment, sometimes you don't see it, but when you
Yeah.
sit back and you're journaling or you're
Yeah.
reading God's word or you're singing or whatever, that is what you're seeing, that God is filling your soul. Right. And so that was all great. To be honest, I did come back with some health issues, but a lot of that had to do with my age and my hormones.
Yeah.
So, um,
We all
and
battle
I,
that.
I, I gotta say, I really miss my socialized medicine because everything was paid for over there and
Oh.
then back here. So, but that's how it played out. So.
Well, and often distance, or getting out of our comfort zones propels us forward in, new experiences, healing, whatever is, needed. We see things differently. And yeah, so I love that you did that. Now, what advice would you give to a woman traveling?
I think you need to go in with an open mind and an open heart. And there's things you're going to see, like when you go to a third world country, that just break your heart,
Mm.
and you just have to just pray because you can't fix that for them.
Yeah.
But there's also things that you're going to see. There's just going to be the sweetest people in the world. And I met this wonderful Jordanian family, such a blessing. He was our tour guide. He showed us all over Jordan. By the way, Jordan is beautiful. I cannot express the Dead Sea, Petra. Those are must do's. Of course, everybody says Dubai. You gotta do Dubai just to do Dubai, right? I mean, if you're going to be in the Middle East, go to Dubai. It's got so many amazing things. And Bahrain and Qatar are now trying to compete with Dubai a little
Yeah.
bit, and
Yeah.
they're putting a lot of cool things. Oman has a world all of its own. It's like a little village down in the ocean, and I mean on the Gulf and Indian Ocean, and it's very sweet people. So they all have different. I think kind of if you go to different states in the United States, you get a different feel, right? And
Mhm. Yes.
just like if you go to different countries, and even though they're all part of the Middle East, they all have a different feel to them. And it's funny because if you would have asked me 3, 4 years ago if I would ever want to travel to the Middle East, I was like, oh, not interested. Thank you. And but God God works things in mysterious ways, right? And so my advice is just definitely, if you have those opportunities and it opens up, go, because you never know what you're going to but like I said, go with an open heart, go with an open mind, because you never know how it's going to play out for you.
Yes. Well, Danielle, this has been an amazing time, and I just so appreciate all your honesty and opening up about your experience, and just I'm thankful for your healing that happened. So thank you so much for being here, and I
Thank you
think
for having me. I'm so
yes,
excited
I
to
loved
share
it. We
with
had
your people.
so much fun. Yes. Thank you again.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. What an incredible story of unlikely place to find healing with Danielle. I love it, and I know for a fact, and I've experienced it myself, that healing can come in those strangest places, and travel can play a part of that. Did this podcast inspire you to participate in a solo journey? Well, my hope is that all women 50 and up have the courage and opportunity to experience at least one solo trip in their lifetime. But maybe you're feeling stuck about trying it solo. With my one-on-one travel coaching program, I can help you have a transformative trip, especially for those who are needing healing. Go to my website, cherylbeckesh.com, and check out the program. Travel is a wonderful vehicle to heal.